I'm in recovery, and two of these are my recovery family members, my brother and my sister. I've been struggling with addiction for 20 years. Share a little bit about myself here in a minute, but first I want you guys to look at your paper and I want you to number it 1 through 8. I'm going to ask you to write some things down on this paper, and as you're thinking and writing your answers down, I ask that you be as quiet as you can so everybody can focus, because this is a really, really important thing that we're about to do right now. On numbers 1 through 3, I want you to write down the 3 most important people to you in your life. It can't be family. You can't say family for a bracket. It has to be 3 individual people. Your brother, your mom, your sister. Okay, for your next 3 numbers, I want you guys to write down 3 things that you hope to accomplish in your life, like a bucket list, some goals. Maybe you've got a career, maybe you want to be a nurse, a mechanic, a firefighter, or something like that. Maybe you want to travel to another country, something like that. 3 things. Okay, for your last 2, I want you guys to write down 2 positive attributes about yourself. Things that you value yourself for that you don't want to let go. Maybe you're honest. Maybe you're hardworking. Maybe you're smart. Maybe you make good choices. Okay, as I continue to talk, if you ain't got it completely filled out, you can fill it out. We're going to set this aside after you get it filled out, and we're going to come back to it here in a little bit. Like I said, my name's Adam. I'm in recovery. I'm 30 years old, and I started using marijuana at age 9 in 4th grade. I had older family members that was using. I was constantly around it. I was introduced to it at a young age, and I was brought up around where it was normal life for me. So I started smoking. I got in trouble in 4th grade for taking pills to school and trying to sell them, because that's what I seen my older family members doing, and I just thought it was okay. So by the time I made it to middle school, I'm smoking and drinking on the weekends. I'm constantly around criminal activity and people that doing harder drugs. I didn't apply myself in school. I had become addicted and chemically dependent at a very young age. And the people that I was associating with, just like college, careers, and stuff like that, didn't apply to them. So by the time I was in 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, I'm hooked on pain pills also. I started with hydrocodone and Percocets. It started as a weekend thing. It was a choice then, but I kept doing it. I kept making the choice. I was dealing with some things from my childhood, dealing with some child abuse and some abandonment issues, and I didn't know how to cope, and these things helped me cope. I didn't have to think about it, so I kept on doing it. Well, I kept on doing it, and I become dependent upon these things to deal with my emotions. And the more I done, the more I needed. So by the time I'm in 10th grade, I've done moved up and I'm using Roxy's and Oxycontin, and I dropped out of high school in 10th grade so that I could work a job and sell drugs and stay high. So whenever you're associating with that lifestyle, all the bad things come along with it. You're going to deal with shady people. You're going to have to get grimy. And then you're going to have times where you're so chemically dependent and so addicted, you will not go without it. And it will wreck your life. It's going to become the most primary focus of your life. You're going to mentally obsess about it. Every morning you're going to wake up and you can't even go one day without using. It happened for me, and it's happened for all of my other friends that I went through school with. All of us have wound up either in jail, in rehab, in prison, or dead, or they're still out there addicted right now. So at age 18, I struggled with my parent. She was an addict, and she was an IV user. She used the needle, and I struggled with that growing up. And I always told myself, I'll never do that. I'll never go that far. But one day, I was so sick. Y'all ever heard about the withdrawals coming off of opiates and pills and stuff? Well, I was so sick and throwing up and body hurting, sweating, legs cramping. Couldn't find what I usually done. The only thing that was around, you had to put in a needle. And the first time I ever tried it, I could never get back away from it. It grabbed a hold of me and nothing else worked the way that did. So I struggled, addicted to the needle for about a year and a half, 2 years. Another hard time had come up and there was nothing around. And I didn't have any money for drugs. I couldn't keep a job. So I had to resort to stealing and hurting people to get what I needed to live. It didn't matter who it was, my grandparents, my parents, my brother, my sister, aunts, uncles. I didn't care, I'd steal off of them. I ended up going and breaking into a house and cleaning out the whole house. And a daytime burglary, and I went to prison whenever I was 19 years old, and I did 19 months my first stint. And that place in there, it's really negative. It makes a really negative impact. The worst of the worst wind up there. So it affected me negatively because it was pretty much college for criminals. For me, I didn't go in there and got better. I went in there and got worse. So I went in a petty thief and I came out a violent criminal. And still never dealt with my addiction or my problem. So I come out, I got released. I went right back to the same old habits and using. But only this time I wouldn't just steal your weed eater or your four-wheeler. I'd hurt you bad to get what I wanted because I couldn't go without it. And if you guys use it, you get chemical dependent. It could happen to some of you guys too. So for all my 20s, I just turned 30 at the end of January, and all of my 20s, from the age 19, and I'm still on paper now, I've either been on probation, bond, parole, in jail, or in prison, or in rehab. 10 years wasted. I've done about 7.5 years total behind the fence in jails and prisons. And every time I've got out, it's gotten worse and worse and worse. So this most recent time I went to prison, I called home. Before I went to prison this last time, this is how bad it got for me with my family, I had become so wrapped up in such a grimy person that my family didn't want nothing to do with me. My friends, they didn't want nothing to do with me. I remember in 2016, I had done been kicked out of the house and homeless. I'm staying in abandoned buildings and woods and stuff. You know, it was Christmas Eve 2016, and I show up at my dad's house and my whole family's there eating dinner. And I haven't been allowed at my brother's, my grandparents, my dad's, or nothing. And I said, well, it's Christmas Eve, everybody's eating dinner, they'll let me come over. Hadn't had a shower in a couple weeks. You know, whenever you're out there homeless and stuff, you go weeks without showers and stuff. So I show up Christmas Eve and I'm thinking they're gonna let me in, let me get a plate of food, maybe a shower, might be able to get 20 bucks or something. I hadn't even had the car door open and my foot in the driveway, and my dad, my sister, my brother come out and said, what are you doing? You know you're not allowed here. I'm thinking, it's Christmas. Y'all gonna turn me away on Christmas? They said, yeah. You lost your privileges to be a part of this family whenever you started choosing drugs and alcohol. You steal off of us all the time. Every time you're around, people's got to keep an eye on their things. Mama Rosie, she can't even go to the bathroom without taking her purse with her. We don't want you around, leave. So I spent Christmas Eve night in a stolen vehicle in Fayette County, West Virginia. 4 days later, I go back to jail. I'm sitting in jail on a shocker on parole. And I'm like, I'm done. I've hit rock bottom. I tell myself, I'm done. I'm calling home. I've got my family convinced that I'm never going to use again. I was sincere. I cried a lot. I even believed it. If you hooked me up to a lie detector test, I would have passed it because I was sure in my head that I was done. So my brother, my sister, and my dad come and pick me up from jail whenever I got released that time. It was a 4-hour trip to come pick me up. On the way home, somebody hit me up and they told me, we just heard you're out. We got some drugs and stuff. Come over. It's free. And then that mental obsession kicked in again. And I'm battling it all the way home on a 3.5-hour trip. My family, they're taking me out to Texas Roadhouse to eat a steak dinner to celebrate me coming home again. This is like the fifth time I've gotten out of jail and prison. The whole way home, I start mentally obsessing and I'm having an inner battle, and it's so hard. My palms are sweating, I'm rubbing them on my pants, legs, all the way home. At the last minute, we stopped at an intersection, and I said, guys, I'm not going out to eat, I'm getting out of the car right here, I'm leaving. They knew where I was going, I didn't have to say a word. My brother looked in the rearview mirror, and I watch a tear roll off his cheek because he knows that I'm going to the dope man's house to get high. I look at him, and everything in me wants to say no and not go use again. I sat there for about 8 seconds, and it was a struggle, one of the hardest struggles in my life. I opened the car door, and I took off on foot. And I went to the dope man's house. Well, 3 days later, I've been up on methamphetamine. The guilt, shame, and remorse is killing me. I thought I had this. I really thought I was done. Done lost everything. Why can't I say no to this? It's got me hooked so bad. When the mother of my children passed away and CPS got involved and I had to fight for my kids, I couldn't get clean. I couldn't stop using. All the times I've gotten out of prison on parole, knowing that I had to do drug tests, and if I fail one, I'm going back to prison, not for a couple days, not 30 days, I'm talking years at a time. That couldn't stop me from using. You guys still have the choice right now before you become chemically dependent. I passed that point. It became a necessity for me. I had to have it. You guys don't have to have it right now. You guys still have a chance at life. So 4 days later, I'm sitting beside the creek in Nicholas County, mad at myself, crying, guilt, shame, remorse, feeling worthless, hating life, miserable. I'm tired of going to jail. I'm tired of going to prison, and I'm tired of being a needle junkie, and I think there ain't no way out. So I'm contemplating suicide. So I got a pistol, and I'm sitting there again, having an inner battle inside. I've got a loaded needle in one hand and a loaded pistol in the other. 20 years I've been fighting this thing. 20 years, and I've been losing. I'm done. I thought suicide was the only way out. I'm scared to death right now. I'm on the verge of killing myself. And I cry out and I reach out. My family been trying to get me to go to treatment for years. I call my brother. I say, come get me, I'm ready. This thing's bigger than me, I need help. So they come get me. They stayed awake for about 18 hours calling every facility in West Virginia trying to get me help. And I wound up in Huntington at Lifehouse with David and Bree that was here earlier. We're all in recovery and we've all went through these struggles. A lot of our stories are the same. It made it easier. I was in a fellowship. It makes it easier being around people who's struggling every day not to drink or pick up a drug. I've got 7.5 months sober right now. It's the longest length of sobriety I've had since I was 9 years old. I have lost everything, time and time and time again. These goals and stuff y'all got wrote down, stuff you want to do throughout your life, I had those too. I wanted to be a firefighter. I wanted to write a book. I wanted a decent career. I'm a 2-time felon now. I got to work hard labor jobs the rest of my life. We do this because we love you guys. We don't want you guys to go down the same road we are because it is a struggle. Basically, we're starting off right now at 30 years old, where you guys are right now. I'm picking up life where I stopped living life in middle school. I'm begging you guys. I know that there's things going on. You probably got family members that's using too. It's probably easy and readily available. You probably got friends that's already doing it. You probably feel like you're different from everybody else. Probably got some anxiety going on, some acceptance issues. We all do. It's a thing that we all go through, and it's okay. Just begging you guys not to pick up that drink or drug. It's not cool. It's not a weekend thing. It's hell on earth, and it gets bad real quick. I want you guys to refer back to your list real quick. And as I'm asking you to do this, I want you to be quiet. I don't want you guys talking whenever I'm having you do this, because this is supposed to be an eye-opener. It's supposed to wake you up, make you really think about things. You guys have a choice today, a choice to say no to drugs and say yes to life. If you want to say yes to drugs and alcohol, you will form a chemical dependency. I've got 20 years experience. I've met all walks of life, and the result is the same for every one of us. So if you want to use drugs and alcohol, you have to mark 2 things off your list right now, because drugs and alcohol says you can't have those 2 things. Mark 2 things off your list. Mark 2 things off your list. You got to do it. Got to do it. Got to cross 2 things off. 2 things that you can live without. Cross them out. This exercise is to show you. Yeah, you gotta mark 2 of them down off. 2 things you can live without. Huh? So the point of this exercise is to show you what forming a chemical dependency of drugs and alcohol will do. It don't care about your goals. It don't care about your positive attributes. It don't care about your family members. It don't care nothing about what you love or care about. And slowly but surely it will take everything from you. So if you want to use drugs and alcohol, mark 2 more things off your list. You have to do it. Mark 2 more things off your list. Mark 2 things off. Guys, can we try to keep it down a little bit? I really want you guys to focus on this so that you can really self-reflect on this. People need to think about this deep. This has to be a deep reflection moment right now. This is life or death. This is real. Everything I've just told you guys is the truth, and I've got hundreds and hundreds of other people in recovery, and all of our stories are the same. They're all the same. We lose everything over and over again. We push the people away that's closest to us. We give up our hopes and dreams. Our positive character attributes. I used to be really good at making people joyous and happy. And once I became addicted and chemically dependent, I brought nothing but guilt, shame, remorse, and pain. My 3 people that I cared about, totally wrecked their lives. Totally wrecked their lives. So, again, you guys still got the choice. You can choose life, or you can choose drugs and alcohol. But if you want to choose drugs and alcohol, mark 2 more things off your list, because drugs and alcohol says you can't have those things. Mark 2 more things off your list. Gotta mark them off. It's a hard decision, right? You got things that you care about. Things that you're not willing to give up. So listen up. Listen. This young man up here in the front said, I'm not marking off my mom and my dad. That's the only things I got. I imagine that all of our lists have pretty much turned out the same, where the last things remaining. See, I got to the point where I had the 3 people that's most important to me in my life. I wasn't willing to give those up. I wasn't willing to mark out one of their names. As I imagine you guys are having some trouble doing that right now too. But I promise you, I'm speaking from 20 years experience. You want to use drugs and alcohol, you might as well mark those names off your list too, because those are the first people that you're going to hurt and push away from you. It's an eye-opener, right? So if you guys can make the choice today to say no to drugs and alcohol and yes to life, you can have all those things on your list. I can still have all those things on my list. I got to work for them though. I got to work really hard, and I have been, and I'm all in right now. I hope by something that one of us shares today that we can get through to some of you guys, because we don't want you guys going down the same road we went to. We love you guys. Thanks for listening.